Total War Warhammer 3's launch is just around the corner, and there are a lot of different options for campaigns in the base game across Cathay, Demons, Ogres, and Kislev. Altogether, you're looking at 11 legendary lords, and with that is quite the decision of which campaign you want to play. In this video series, I'll be giving you a spoiler-free campaign overview to help you decide if it's the right campaign for you. Each campaign will play differently, with an emphasis on a particular playstyle, unit choice, or mechanic. Our next video in this series will highlight Kairos Fateweaver, the exalted demon of Tzeentch that leads the scribes of Tzeentch in the lands beyond the Great Bastion of Cathay. This is a campaign filled with a plethora of ways to manipulate your enemy via the Changer of Ways mechanic. You'll be able to find the rest of these videos as they're made linked in the playlist in the upper right corner and end of this video. If this is your first time on my channel, the way I do these videos is by giving you a no spoiler breakdown. I'll boot the game up on turn 1 of the campaign, I'll explain the mechanics of the character in question, show you their skills, quickly show off their research tree, and then give you an overall idea of what the campaign plays like. Keep in mind, this is not a guide, but a quick campaign overview to help you decide which campaign to play when Total War Warhammer 3 launches. Feel free to jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using the chapters denoted in the timeline and the description. Before we get started, if you have not yet pre-ordered Warhammer 3 and intend on buying the game, you can support the channel by using the link to my Nexus Store. Nexus provides Steam keys directly from the developer, and I get a cut of every sale, significantly helping to keep the channel alive. Lastly, if you end up enjoying the content, please don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe. I cannot tell you how much it helps combating the evil YouTube algorithm. But let's get started on Kairos Fateweaver's campaign summary in Total War Warhammer 3. Jumping into turn 1 of the campaign for Kairos Fateweaver, we have a lot of fun mechanics to get into. Probably one of the more enjoyable lords for me when it comes to the Chaos Demons. So looking at the Keeper of the Destiny Scrolls, here's the faction mechanic. So enemy reinforcement time prediction accuracy plus 100%. So you know when those reinforcements are going to be joining the battlefield. Battle reinforcement time for your own units reduced by 50%. So it would take normally a minute. We'll just say 2 minutes. This would now take 50% less. Hero action success chance plus 15% for all characters. So that is your base faction effect here for the Oracles of Tzeentch led by Kairos Fateweaver. So some of the cool things here can all be geared around grimoires. This is the special currency for Kairos. The entire world can be manipulated using grimoires. Collect them through buildings and fighting battles, and use them via changing of the ways and researching technologies, which is important because you need them for almost all of your important technologies. So you'll do this, of course, through battles. Buildings will generate them. Characters will generate them. Events will do it. You'll have a lot of little specific events, little dilemmas that'll give it to you. Looting, sacking, and raising. And then also technologies might grant them as well as consume them. And then your unholy manifestations, which we'll get into, will also grant you some grimoires. But you will sacrifice something, right? Like say, like you can't move for two turns while you generate grimoires. So those are your grims. Now another big thing too is if I click on Kairos here, they get a special stance, the Tzeentchians, and it's called Teleport Stance. So this is going to cost me Winds of Magic to do so. And you can see over here on the right side of your army panel, you'll have your actual Winds of Magic power reserve. So currently it's at 50. This is going to cost me 40 to use. Then teleport past terrain that would normally be impassable. Minimum required to assume not move this turn. So even if you move from a garrison to right outside of it, that's still going to consume 1%, so you can't use it after. And immune to most attrition. Also, you can't use it if you're in a garrison. It doesn't say that on here, but you can't. Trust me, tried it. So you press this button, we're in teleport stance, and we can move this direction just like Underway is if you've played Total War Warhammer 1 or 2. But you can also use this to directly ambush an army. So if I were to right click right now, it would directly ambush this army. We would jump into an ambush fight. And it's a really cool way to get a jump on a really big force that you maybe are kind of equal power with. This can kind of help tip those scales into your advantage because a lot of your units are ranged with Tzeentch. And we'll talk about that once we jump into the battle mechanics portion of this video. So that is one of the bigger ones for Tzeentch, one of the more overt ones, but we have two big mechanics that we also can manipulate. And this is the Winds of Magic manipulation. I didn't mean for that to be a pun like that, but and pun's not even the word, but still, you have the ability to manipulate the Winds of Magic in any region that you have control over. Now, you don't need to own the entire province, and this is a really good example here, right? Here is the province of the Eastern Steppes. We only own this location, but we can manipulate the winds of magic in the entire province. So I can, right now, it's currently blowing, but I can decrease the winds of magic strength to weak down here to to calm. So then I have that to then increase to at another location. And why you'd want to do that is, of course, the ability to increase your winds of magic power reserve, because casting spells is a huge portion of playing Tzeentch, right? You obviously want to be casting lots of spells all the time, but more importantly, if we take a look at our infrastructure buildings, in military and advanced military, there's nothing crazy here. Same thing with defense. But when we look at our infrastructure, every single one of them will have something at the bottom that says when the winds of magic is strong or higher, get additional benefits here. So this building will give us grimoires, something we talked about earlier. But then look at this one right here. This is going to be giving us more winds of magic, increasing our growth. This is going to give us more growth for winds of magic. This one here is for more income, and this one here is for control. And just like every other demon except for Nurgle, the provincial capital of any province has got one of two options. You can make a demon portal or a bastion, and the bastion is going to give you growth, construction cost reduction for infrastructure buildings, and it's going to help out with defensive supplies and control, stuff of that sort. But when you look at the demon portal, it's going to give you growth and defensive supplies, sure, but it's going to help out with your corruption, reduce your recruitment cost, and the recruitment cost or the construction cost for military recruitment buildings. So you use this more for a location you want to focus on military production in, and you'd use this for more for a province that you want to work on solely economically, right? Like this is the place where I want all my economy to boom, but I'm going to be moving through the bastion line and not the demonic portal line. So those are your special little mechanics with portals, or I'm sorry, with buildings there. Now, the other big mechanic is the changing of the ways. Hatch plots and treasons to manipulate the destiny of all beings. So the way that this works is, and as you go through the campaign, you'll unlock different technologies that'll grant these additional manipulations, these changing of the ways that you can do. And the way that you select here is like, so let's go ahead and click this location, the floating mountains. And I can actually transfer the settlement ownership from the floating mountains to anyone else on this list. And you'll see that I am not on that list because I'm at war with this location. But this location, I am not at war with. So I can transfer them to me, the Oracles of Tzeentch. Now you're probably wondering, what is the pretense in which you can do this? Well, first, for transferring settlements, you just can't be at war with them, but there's other things that go into the factoring the cost. So take a look here. This amount is derived from the average diplomatic relation between the target factions, lower is cheaper, and the average Tzeentch corruption across the target faction's territory, higher is cheaper. So average diplomatic relations is 7.5, and average Tzeentch corruption is 20. So having more corruption is going to make this a cheaper situation. So you can kind of eke in a ton of Tzeentchian corruption and then transfer the settlement. So you have a bunch of ways you can do this. And it's the same thing here for pretty much everything else. You can open the gates in location, force rebellions. You've got these other two that are pretty cool. Reveal Shroud will basically show you all the territory that that faction owns. And then you got Reveal Faction Intentions, which will show you where that faction is going. Are they going to go attack someone? Are they attacking me? Are they going to go reinforce a bro? Whatever they're going to do, you'll be able to see that through the changing of the ways, which is particularly cool. Now moving into corruption, we have the specific monogod corruption here for Tzeentch, and this is going to increase control and chance of winds of magic increasing in strength when changing plus 6%. So this gives you a nice boost, possible boost to your winds of magic corruption. Of course, you'll also get the passive bonus here for Chaos Undivided. Chaos Undivided. Well, it doesn't do anything for you. It just gives attrition to everyone else, but that's the shtick there. And it'll start to appear on the map in these really cool blue cascading colors, which is quite nifty. Now, as always with any monogod, as you progress towards a certain amount of corruption in locations, you'll be able to create cults. Those cults will grant you either the ability to have more grimoires or do some manipulations to the winds of magic, just to kind of talk about that for continuity's sake, as I've done it in every other one of these monogod videos. Now, on the point of corruption, we have also the Great Game. This is, of course, the contention between all 4 of the Chaos Gods, you being number 4 here in Tzeentch, the other 3 kind of vying for attention. And this is all dependent upon the total amount of chaos, specifically your Chaos God's corruption, across the map. And this manifests itself in unholy manifestations. These are your 4 abilities that will be bound to 0, 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 total Tzeentchian corruption. You can see right here. So this is, again, all corruption across the map. The total amount of Tzeentch corruption across the entire world. Each threshold will unlock a new unholy manifestation. And like I was saying, this first one here is going to disable your movement for 2 turns. When you're in enemy territory, you have to be in enemy territory for this to go off. And then you gain 250 grimoires immediately. So it's a great way to boost those grimoires if you do want to get, say, a settlement taken care of or force a rebellion, whatever it is. Also, you're going to look at mutagenic energies. This is going to enable attrition for this army regardless of immunities for 1 turn. So you can use this to kind of really cripple someone before you fight them. You get Magic Flare here, which is going to give you barrier hit points plus 25%, and then range plus 20% as well. And then lastly, we get Night of Madness. Campaign movement disabled during completion time. Takes 3 turns to complete, but upon completion, winds and magic powers are plus 15 per turn, control minus 50 for local enemy province, and Tzeentch corruption plus 25 for local enemy province. So a lot of great things there. And we'll go over this more in the combat section, but just to kind of show, it did say barrier. You'll notice that above every one of these units is a little blue bar here. That is your barrier. That's basically, think of it like a Protoss shield from StarCraft. Barrier health is depleted before unit health when taking damage. The barrier health will slowly replenish when not taking damage. Maximum barrier health is proportional to remaining unit health. So that is, again, something we'll look at once we jump into the actual combat portion of this video. But those are all of the unique mechanics here for Tzeentch. They are a little more direct, right? You look at stuff like Nurgle and it's a little more passive. You'll be really manipulating a lot of things in this game actively as Kairos Fateweaver. Moving into character skills, we see Kairos Fateweaver's amazing cloud of blue and his trait Oracle here. So can unlock unique items that can be used to customize Kairos's spell selection, enemy hero action success chance minus 50%, and ambush defense chance plus 50%, which are all quite nice to have. As far as abilities go, taking a look at these, the typical standard fare, causing fear and terror, encourage, so increasing the leadership of people around him. He is also a demon, so banishing and demon instability are a thing, as well as fly. Of the demons we've covered so far, as far as legendary lords go, he is the only one that can actually fly. Also gets siege attacker, and physical resistance of 20%. As far as his actual attributes go, pretty low in his melee defense and low armor, but he has his barrier, which is quite nice, and has 315 AP weapon strength here, as well as 90 speed because he's got some wings on him, 85 leadership, and 35 melee attack that is magical. Now, jumping into his actual skills, we can see some fun things. Now, this is turn 1, and at turn 1, he already starts with 3 points invested into his actual, 4 points invested into his spellcasting line. 2 points into Blue Fire of Tzeentch, 1 point into Glean Magic, which allows you to suck the power reserve from an enemy and gain it for yourself, and then 1 point here into Pink Fire of Tzeentch. All really amazing abilities to start the game with, and since you have so many spells to take advantage of, it's nice that you kind of get this little bit of a head start. But moving through the bottom line, Route Marcher, blue line, changing of the ways cost reduction, and as well as control increase, ambush success chance, and changing of the ways cooldown reduction. So what's unique here about Kairos is that he actually has blue line abilities that will help with your campaign mechanic. Most of the lords, including the Chaos Demons, do not have that, which is nice. He has his lightning strike capability, as I've said before plenty of times. This now enables it so you can choose whether or not you cut off reinforcements, and if you do, you have reduced vigor, and it increases battle reinforcement time by 50% if you choose not to actually cut off the reinforcements. Called by changes upkeep, intents and purposes, changing of the ways cost minus 100% for reveal faction intentions. And then Scrolls of Destiny is going to be granting you some grimoires, as well as increasing the grimoires generated from all buildings by 100% in local provinces. Legions of Madness is going to help out with casualty replenishment rate. The Renowned and Fear is the typical fare of upkeep, campaign movement, hero self-defense, action success chance, and then recruitment rank for your units is increased. As far as his red line goes, it is the new red line that increases experience by 75 as well as leadership by 5 here as well. Moving through this, I'll just jump through. It's going to be giving your typical kind of benefits, but note here that this is barrier and missile strength for all type of horrors. And you have got speed and melee attack and charge bonus for your Forsaken and Spawns. You have got bonuses for missile strength for Flamers and Exalted Flamers. Then you have got your bonuses for weapon strength and charge bonus for your Knights. Lastly, you have got armor increase here for your Lord of Change as well as melee attack. For his ability in that line, we get Seer of Destiny, which will give melee defense and leadership in a 55-meter radius around him as long as he's out of combat, which is pretty nice considering he can fly. And you get your rank 7 abilities. These will all increase things. The corresponding units that you were buffing, it will buff them even further if they're above rank 7. And you get Master of Fates, which is a further 3 leadership and melee defense for anyone in a 55-meter radius around you. I'm going to get to this line in a bit. So jumping up into his actual casting line, you see what we get here, but we also get the Lore of Tzeentch, who helps with damage resistance. Treason of Tzeentch, which is going to reduce melee attack and leadership. Prismatic Plurality, which is going to decrease cooldown by 10 seconds for 33 seconds. Then we get Tzeentch's Firestorm and Infernal Gateway, 2 really awesome Vortex abilities, Magical Reserve and Earthing, and then later we get Greater Arcane Conduit. Here's the difference between Arcane and Greater Arcane Conduit. You get Spell Mastery, which will increase the potency of your abilities. So this is quite nice here. Also, we get Power Recharge of 60% versus the base of 40, I believe. Also going into his primary skill line, his unique one, Oracle of Eternity is going to increase barrier by 40% during battles and grants him the ability Oracle of Eternity, which gives him a 44% damage resistance buff for 22 seconds. It's a very nice get out of jail free card. The Oracle, which is going to help with changing the chance of Winds of Magic increasing by 10%. I'm sorry, increasing the chance of Winds of Magic increasing when changing by 10%. Miscast base chance minus 40%. Thaumaturgic Rejuvenation helping out with that barrier replenishment rate and delay. Wind Summoner is going to help with Winds of Magic Reserve as well as physical resistance. Boons of Change helps with that barrier increase for Lord of Change units as well as Winds of Magic costs for Lore of Tzeentch spells. And lastly, Bewitching Potency, which increases barrier by 20% during battles and attribute Mastery of the Elemental Winds for Iridescent Horrors, Cultists, and Lords of Change. This is the same ability that we saw on Zhao Ming and Miao Ying. So the Mastery of the Elemental Winds, when the more than one unit that shares this attribute are in the same army, the power of spells cast is increased. So what this means is, for your for your Iridescent Horrors, Cultists, and Lords of Change. Those are all Hero and the really strong Demon Prince unit. I'm sorry, Exalted Demon unit. No, it's a Greater Demon. It's a Greater Demon, I promise. For all 3 of those units, it's going to exponentially increase the amount of potency of all of the spells cast. It is stupid strong. So this really allows you to pop off in that later game. And you also get Gaze of Fate here, which is going to reduce melee attack by 40 and lock someone down for 14 seconds. It's very nice. Then you get your typical missile resistance here. Hidden in Time, which allows you to do Stalk and Unstoppable or Unspottable for I'm sorry, it's got a 73-second duration. That took me by surprise. I thought I read the cooldown there. So 73-second duration on that, and you have 2 uses of it. But now you have these special fragments, and the way that these fragments work is you invest a point into them, and you gain 2 spells: Piercing Bolts of Burning and Flaming Sword of Ruin, because this is from Akshi, the Lore of Fire Magic. And then under that, you'll see though that it disables 2 spells. It'll disable Glean Magic and Infernal Gateway. So you get a trade. You trade 2 spells from Lore of Tzeentch for 2 spells from any of the lores of the existing magic. So you can say, you know, I want some healing. So you're going to get a Fragment of Gear in here. It's going to give you the spells Regrowth and Shield of Thorns, but disables Treason of Tzeentch and Tzeentch's Firestorm. And if you invest a secondary point into this, you reduce the cooldown and Winds of Magic cost for these spells, and you get the lore attribute. So in this case, it's going to grant Life Bloom, which gives you a passive of replenishing health anytime a spell is cast. It's very, very strong and very nice. But it is important to note that this gives you a fragment. It's an arcane item that would be socketed into this location. So if you already have a really nice arcane item, you're going to lose it to put this in its place. So just to kind of illustrate how that works. Lastly, we get the Staff of Tomorrow for our quest item here that helps with hero recruitment capacity for cultists, Tzeentch corruption, and miscast base chance by reduction by 15%, and the ability Staff of Tomorrow, which helps out with decreasing cooldown by 120 seconds. The last thing I do want to quickly go into here is all of your Heralds of Tzeentch. Remember, this is true for any mono god unit. If you do want to have this unit progress up to an exalted Greater Demon of that respective god, you have to get to a certain level, and you'll be prompted with a scenario that tells you, hey, you are ready to basically evolve this Pokemon, or you can stop it from evolving, or you can just delay the evolving, whatever you want to do. And that happens at around levels 13, 14, or 15. I haven't been able to pinpoint it. For Legend of Total War, it happened at 14, or at 15. For Indie Part, it happened at 14. For me, it happened at 13. So it just depends, it seems. You also get your 3 locuses here. So Locus of Change, which is going to be a AP and base missile damage bonus for all of your range units. You get Locus of Conjuration, which is going to help with power recharge, and then a Locus of Transmogrification here as well, which helps you summon a unit of blue horrors. But that is our character skills here for Tzeentch. Let's move on over to some research. The technology tree here for Kairos is very interesting because it falls upon some lore flavor here. 9 is the number of the Changer. 9 are the levels within the perplexing 9th library, Tzeentch's repository of forgotten knowledge. Scour the bookcases, learn and indulge in our master's lore. So each one of these individual little groups is got 9 technologies in it. This kind of plays upon that whole notion of 9. But you'll notice that each access to each of these clusters is bound upon one here, one here, and one technology here. You go through them and you'll jump into them. And for the most part, it's just the standard fare. What you'd really want to focus on, though, are anything that says way of something. Way of deceit, way of fate, way of scrying. Doesn't always need to say way, but I think temporal switch, yeah. This isn't a way, but it is still one that's going to grant you a changing of the ways. So this allows you to break alliance. This allows you to track armies, halt factions. This one's going to allow you to open gates. So those are all important to look for, and they help out with your actual faction mechanic. Another big one here is teleport, which is going to reduce the usage of the Winds of Magic to make it so it's entirely free, which is very big. And then lastly are these ones like this that are going to give the specific spell to your Lord of Change units. Like I've said before, there is always going to be some sort of technology that adds some sort of either units or abilities, spells or abilities or strengths to your greater demons, and those are the ones that you're going to be looking for. And keep in mind too, some of them will cost grimoires to research, but that is your technology tree here for Kairos. Transitioning now to some combat mechanics for Tzeentch. See some fun stuff going on here, and the blue horrors are just making some disgusting noises, and they're probably some of the cooler looking demons. Like, look at these little guys, right? Oh, adorable. Like Pixar made them, but like was on meth. So let's take a look at some stuff here. So the big thing to note is, of course, the barrier mechanic for Tzeentch here, right? So again, this barrier will act as kind of like a Protoss shield from StarCraft. That barrier will get eaten health-wise before the actual hit points start getting chunked away. And there's a time that it'll take until it'll actually regenerate on the battlefield and off the battle map. So it can actually replenish, but it will actually, it has to not be taking damage and not be in combat, of course. So those will allow it to replenish on the battlefield. And of course, a big thing too with Tzeentch is magic. So everything for the most part will be doing magical attacks, and a lot of units will be doing flaming attacks. And this all comes together in under one specific mechanic, so bear with me here for a little bit. If we look over here at these Furies, you'll be able to see that they also have the barrier and magic attack. It's kind of like the trademark of the Mark of Tzeentch in this game. But looking over here at the Burning Chariot of Tzeentch, we get another little mechanic that's worth jumping into, and it is Warp Flame. So this gives weakness to fire damage minus 11% and armor minus 15. So if this thing hits something, it applies a Warp Flame debuff, and it allows the entire army to do 11% more damage if they do flaming attacks, which, as you can see, is the majority of your base foot soldiers here. So you can note how that is a really important mechanic and can be stacked on top of itself to do a ton of damage as Tzeentch. But looking at your actual frontline guys, these are your base frontline demons. They have 5 armor, they've got 22 melee defense, they'll just get killed very quickly in close combat. So that's kind of the trade-off you're going to get here. And of course, you got that really cool ass soul grinder looking sweet and girthy. But for the most part, that's everything for Tzeentch. The only big mechanic I haven't gone over for him in combat is this little guy. So, like I've said before with the mono gods, or well, every faction in Warhammer 3, there's some sort of combat mechanic that will boost over time. And for this, it's the Eye of Tzeentch. Points are generated by casting spells with the Winds of Magic. Points needed for this first ability is 100. And as you use more researches, you'll unlock more spells. But in my no spoiler kind of purview of this video, I have not shown off any of the other ones. So Arcane Surge will increase power recharge by 80% and reserves per second plus 0.3 and lasts for 14 seconds. You'll just kind of target Kairos or whoever is a spellcaster and you'll get this benefit. So a really, really fun mechanic here for Tzeentch. That's something I wanted to show off because they are at this current point when this video is being made, they're very strong in combat, in campaign, but they just run to the issue of, they can't really deal with sustained melee. So we've gone over pretty much everything here now, right? We've gone over unique mechanics, character skills, research, all that good jazz. So the question is, how does this campaign play? Is it going to be right for you? Is it going to be right for me? Who is it going to be right for? So really, when you're taking a look at Kairos Fateweaver's campaign, it's very interesting. His units on paper don't look like they're going to be very good. You look at this guy, he's got 22 melee defense, 20 melee attack as a hybrid infantry unit, and his missile strength is 21. And he only has 5 ammunition. So it feels like he's not going to be great. But in all honesty, like I said just a second ago, Kairos Fateweaver's campaign is very interesting because his units are very strong. But there's a weakness in that A, they're not going to be good in close combat, but they'll melt anything from ranged. In addition, B, they have very low casualty replenishment rate. Very few things in Kairos' army will help with casualty replenishment, so that actually kind of slows your campaign down. It makes it so that you can't just take these stupid strong range units and rip through everything. The caveat here is, of course, that they're very cheap, so you can just simply build more, but in the early portions of the campaign, you'll solidify the eastern steppes, but then you'll be faced with all of Cathay. And then in this direction, you have a lot of ogres to contend with who can oftentimes deal with a lot of your range damage, if not burst it down individually. So the one thing I will say about Kairos' campaign is you do have strong units in what they can do a ton of damage, but they're more like glass cannons. And with his actual campaign mechanics, you have to kind of be wily about it. You have to be smart about what you are pulling and using with your individual changing of the ways and how you're manipulating the winds of magic to make it so that you're either increasing your winds of magic to use your teleport stance to ambush people, or to increase winds of magic to make it so that you get the most out of your infrastructure buildings. Those are two really big things that this is going to be pulling from. And also, you're going to be really, with this campaign, you're not going to be ripping across everything like you would with Khorne. It's a much more measured approach, which is very Tzeentchian in its own right. And it is worth noting too that when you jump into combat, it is very micro intensive. So you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to make sure units are not invested in combat and trying to pull units out of it. So if that's what you're looking for in a campaign, this will definitely be the one for you. But if you're brand new to the game and you maybe don't really know how to micro things in combat, or you really just haven't worked out the campaign map kind of nuance yet, it might not be the best one to start off as. It's a very good and very fun and very challenging campaign, but it does have a lot that you have to pay attention to in order to get the most out of it. So hopefully this helps you get a good idea of how Tzeentch will play, or how Kairos Fateweaver will play come the launch of Total War Warhammer 3. If you have any other questions or anything that I didn't cover, or something that you want to know a little bit more about, by all means, just go ahead and let me know in the comment section below. But thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.